Shalom. This is the translation of the Parashat Vayeshev drash given to us in Spanish by Alejandro Alvarado. This week's Parashat Vayeshev tells the story of Joseph and his brothers. We can only try to imagine what life of Jacob was like as an elderly father with 12 grown children from different mothers and each with a personality of their own. I wonder how Jacob, and the mothers of course, would be able to raise such a family in these times. If life today with all the advances we have made is difficult, imagine what it was like back then. Joseph's story is clear, that everything turns out for the better. Even under adverse circumstances, everything turns out for good. Through all the events narrative, we can see how the Creator intervened in each circumstance to save Joseph and thus the people of Israel. An important trait of Joseph that is worth noting is his spiritual greatness and his unselfishness. How often do we, when faced with similar circumstances, fill ourselves with resentment and bitterness and blame others or even the Creator himself for everything that has happened to us? The Torah tells us, between the lines, that Joseph remained upright and without malice toward his brothers and others, even during very hard times, regardless of whether he himself provoked them or not. It's important to be objective when analyzing Joseph's behavior. He was neither a saint nor a villain, just a human being with elements of both. The fact of having been an instrument to save an entire people doesn't make him superior to other human beings. Moreover, we must not overlook all the good that we can learn from him. For example, his attitude. He was a man of conviction. He demonstrated a cheerful and willing spirit. Another quality of Joseph is that he was obedient to his father and his superiors. His father sent him to look for his brothers, and when he got to the place where they were supposed to be, he found that they weren't there. Instead of running back to his father, he continued on to where he was told they would be. He found his brothers because he wanted to obey his father, and he searched for them, even if they were miles away. By what his father ordered him, and the fact that he was always promoted and placed in positions of power and responsibility, shows us that he was someone who wasn't afraid to obey orders. Now that his mother died, his affections were directed toward his elderly father, who had previously been a cause of pain and grief. Joseph was an honorable man. He demonstrated this in front of Potiphar's wife, whose husband had given Joseph a wide range of responsibilities and placed everything he owned under Joseph's care, except, of course, for his own wife, who took sexual interest in him. However, Joseph repeatedly resisted her advances and made his rejection quite clear to her. Despite him being still very young, he did not give in to her advances. The fact that Joseph displayed these virtues at such an early age tells us that mental maturity does not depend upon physical maturity. Chapter 37, verse 2 says that Joseph was young. Rashi said that this refers to the speed with which Joseph, like all young people, wanted to live life. That is, perhaps he did not realize the consequence that his actions would produce. By bringing bad reports to his father about his siblings, he probably wasn't thinking about the consequences. However, later, he forgave them for what they did in retaliation and was patient with them. Although Joseph eventually rose in power, wealth, and prominence, he experienced many dark days. His brothers hated him and sold him as a slave. He spent many years in prison, in disgrace, and was long forgotten by those he helped. Despite all this, he did not lose hope or spirit. Active and cheerful, he always showed seriousness and moral resolve. Later, as an adult, he also demonstrated kindness, fidelity, and truthfulness. We will see this better later on in Parashat Vayechi, when he will tell his brothers about what happened. As I've already mentioned, Joseph seemed like a very emotionally mature young man. He later became an interpreter of dreams. He may have interpreted his own dreams, but because the Torah does not mention that he was asleep when he dreamed his famous dreams, it could lead us to believe that they may have been daydreams. In other words, his dreams may have been the product of deep reflection. With Joseph, we learn that to forgive is to leave the past behind and to live in the present. Joseph's brothers had reason to hate him. His father gave him special gifts, and in telling them his dreams, he appeared superior to them. We cannot blame Joseph's brothers for feeling belittled by their father, much less for feeling jealous and resentment toward him and angry. They hated him so much they couldn't even speak peaceably to him, and later, when the opportunity presented himself, they sold him as a slave. But no emotion or circumstance justifies any act of cruelty. In those circumstances, forgiveness is something, although it's not easy to achieve, we must work hard to do exactly that. In this portion, we see that nothing happened by accident. Just as it is in this beautiful story, every detail counts in our own daily lives. For example, in the case where the man who gave Joseph the information about the whereabouts of his brothers, our sages do not agree about who this man was. There are those who say that it was the angel Gabriel, and others that he was simply a passerby. Some say that it was God himself. Whoever this unknown man was, he was an instrument of the Creator in this story. If Joseph had not found his brothers, he would not have been where he should have been for the remainder of the events to have been able to take place. The message could not be clearer. When the Creator has arranged something, even if it seems impossible, something happens, and the sovereignty of the eternal blessed be He is shown so that events unfold according to His divine will. We have here a wonderful vision of how the Borei Olam works, sovereignly in His universe. Neither good nor bad can frustrate the Eternal's plans. Baruch Hu, blessed be He. Let us not forget our convictions. When we find the point of contact between the apparently negative events that happened in the past and the positive effect that it has brought to our lives, it is then that we are able to free ourselves from that past and live in the present toward a healthier and more positive future. Nothing happens by chance. Everything contains a secret plan, whether it is revealed or not. When something bad happens to us, we may find ourselves unsettled, shaken in our faith, in our convictions and our beliefs. But we always have the opportunity to see the Creator at work in the midst of everything. Shabbat Shalom.